Alright, greetings all, it's DFuxa. I guess I should probably apologize to you guys. So, I'll note that basically after I completed the playlist for Derelict Void here and Mech Commander, I decided I basically would start uploading my usual explore videos and showcase videos and stuff like that. And well, at this point, you guys basically had 10 or 11 of these videos in a row. And that really seemed excessive to me because even though this is a game to sort of promote new content for you guys and show off basically games basically to basically play possibly in the future, this seemed a little bit excessive, like overly excessive. So yeah, I basically apologize for the amount of content you guys basically saw, but well, the plan basically going forward is that in the future, if I have explore videos to show off and showcase videos to show off, I'll maybe show off maybe a week of them at most, and then I'll go into the next series. If I basically have more than that, then they'll basically appear the series basically after that. So that's just how it's gonna be. Because it seems excessive basically to have over a week's worth of these video content, so to speak, to watch. So don't expect this basically to happen again. Alright, so I'll note that going forward, I basically have a playlist for Birth of the Empire that's basically uploaded again. And it's for Coalition of Planets. And as stated in the last video I basically did for discussing my future plans and such, this is basically a peaceful type of play style these guys basically did. And it basically ended up where I basically allied enough minor factions and major factions to basically get a diplomatic victory. So I'm quite happy about that. Basically showed off another victory types in the game. And as basically sort of said, this is probably one of the better place basically did for the game, as opposed to the Heian or the Omega. So I'm quite pleased about that. Now, what I'm going to basically do after this playlist here, I'm not really sure. I want to note that basically I have these basically uploaded until June 15th of next month. But after basically these are uploaded, I sort of thinking, what am I going to do next? So, welcome to my desktop. You probably see this enough when you see my other videos, but well, I just want to explain a couple of things about how games are basically sort of portrayed basically on the screen here, because there is some madness basically how I have things set up on this this desktop here. So I'll note basically over here, I have a few titles. And these titles are basically titles that were currently in early access that I'm sort of holding off before doing any more videos for until the full release basically comes out. And then I'll basically looking to do a let's play for them at that time. Next to them, I basically have a couple more games. These are single player games that I may play in my own time, and I may do playlists in the future for them as well on my YouTube channel. But they're sort of on the back burner. They're sort of in the background. Just don't really care about them. Next to them, I have some cooperative games, and if Coruscant's around or friends around, I'll basically play that game with them. And I do plan to do playlists for these games in the future a little more. Like Streets of Rogue, I plan to do maybe a couple of runs like Cornish Knight. Children More is basically a game that he's just we look into, though I'm not sure if it basically has online co-op yet or not. Door Kickers, Police Stories, should be lots of fun with those ones. Below them, Birth of the Empires, Birth of the Federation. These are the playlists I'm basically currently chugging through right around now to show you guys, and basically I'm trying to show them off completely, and then they'll be basically off my desktop for good. We have Putt Putt down here. That's more or less for my niece, but have to put it somewhere. And then finally I have these games over here. So I'll note that recently you saw Derelict Void, but I also have Treasure Fleet and John Shaver's At the Gates here. These games here are ones I've basically done playlists for already. And my inclination toward them is that I want more updates to basically come out for these games to basically show them off in a better light, so to speak. Derelict Void, for example, seems incomplete, so I want it to be completed more so I can basically show it off more. Treasure Fleet basically is buggy and it has a lot of mechanics that could be improved on. And then there's John Schiffer's At the Gates. We'll talk about this in a moment. Let's just go at the Treasure Fleet for a moment here. So I will note that Treasure Fleet. This is a game that I did like let's play last month, and I basically thought to myself that when I basically did the run through with like the Spanish of these guys, that I want to basically go back to them, basically show off some of the stuff I didn't like really understand, and some new updates basically this guy is basically doing for this game, because since I basically done my recordings for this game, there's basically been a couple patches. One basically fix up bugs and make the nits perhaps like a little bit less shall we say their reactions to the player are a little bit more consistent, so not sort of like sporadic in like their decision making, and they're a little bit harder to trade with now, because before it gets trade with them for free, and that was basically stopped a little bit, so you basically have to at least go over to a village base to really chase them down. And then that got fixed as well, by the way. Well, I'll get to that in a moment. Basically, something to note about Treasure Fleet here is that the developer is very active basically fixing his game. And I'll note that even during my Let's Play I was basically doing, a lot of these post basically I did here recently for my thread here for general feedback. I basically playing through it, basically telling you a little bit my thoughts about native triggers being a little bit too exploitable and stuff like that, and other stuff like that. And well, basically between when I basically started my plays for this game, and I'll bring these up here, I basically started to record these and get a playlist basically up for them basically at the start of May here. And well, recently last week, the developer, he actually updated his game. And by updating his game, I mean he actually addressed some of the issues actually was noting here recently with the natives being very exploitable and stuff like that. And basically between these 14 videos basically you see here already basically for Treasure Fleet, these are basically before the developer basically updated to correspond to some of the complaints basically had this time around for the game. And it actually really goes to show this is a developer who actually really cares about his game, and it's just something to note, because not all developers basically care about their game. And I'm not bothered for the Treasure Fleet here, these videos here, by the way. I'm actually thinking about putting them out right after the Coalition Plans play for Birth of the Empires. I'm not sure I'm basically doing more recording basically after this point, but well, I still want to basically show this stuff off, so sooner and later would probably be a good idea for putting this stuff out, but whatever. All right, so enough of Treasure Fleet here. So let's just sort of switch the pace here to Kickstarter. I want to note that there's basically some projects on Kickstarter that are very forthcoming, and they basically been heralded as great successes by the masses, so to speak. Such as this one right here. And after FTO is basically funded basically on Kickstarter, I basically started looking at Kickstarter basically funding games myself, and help some creators basically get their games off the ground. And one such game here is John Schaefer's At the Gates. And well, that big unhappy face should basically tell you what I basically think about this project so far. So I want to note that John Schaefer's At the Gates here. This is a game that it's had a lot of ups and downs. And well, basically last year, on January or June 25th of 2020, I think the last patch is basically done for this game. So I was basically very much waiting to basically see some more content basically come from for John Schaefer's At the Gates before doing another Let's Play to basically show it off. But it's getting to that point where I don't think there's going to be another update for John Schaefer's At the Gates. I think the game's been abandoned, and it's rather unfortunate, because as I basically said between my last two plays I did for this game, I wanted to do more content for this game to basically show it off. And one thing about doing right now is that I may still do a playlist for a game, but it'll be sort of a conclusion playlist to basically just show the game in this last patches before I basically delete it from my my system basically. Now, to give you guys some background on Kickstarter, this Kickstarter. Back in let's go to the campaign here. Back in 2013 when this game was being funded, I basically placed $25 basically to get this game basically off the ground. And a long time basically after that, the game was basically like, released in a very, very poor state, basically on January 23rd of 2019. Now, to say the least, I have not been very happy with the end project for John Schafer's at the Gates, but there's a lot of good ideas for this game, and I really wanted to show it off, all the good elements this game sort of had. But the thing I like to note about this game is that it's a very good lesson in game making, in that you want to basically know when to cut off your ideas and say I can't implement everything. I have to stop here. And John Schafer, I don't think ever did that. And the end result was basically what this game's basically currently in its current state. So yeah, I'm thinking at this point that I'll do one more run for John Schafer's at the Gates, and I'm just gonna quickly go into the game here. And also take a while to load because it is what it is. Now I'm just gonna hit the V button here, which basically brings up our last updates. And basically what I'm thinking, by the way, is that the last basically time is game was basically touched by a developer was basically on July 1st, 2020. What I'm thinking is that around this time, the year anniversary of the last update for the game, maybe I'll do one last playlist for the game, so to speak. So yeah, there's some thoughts. All right, well, so there's a little bit of sort of rambling music and stuff like that, all in one very long video. You're basically gonna have some collection plans basically for the next little while. You might see maybe half my my 14 videos basically go for Treasure Fleet, and then maybe some more later after that. I'm thinking about doing another place for John Schafer's at the Gates. All right, well, I hope you guys basically enjoy my videos, and after basically I get through these two games here, I'll probably leave Treasure Fleet on my desktop if it keeps updating as it does. But well, there's some thoughts basically going on in the future. Alright, well, this video basically went a lot longer than my usual ones, but thank you for bearing with me if you watched all this. And yeah, take care.